welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, Modi 3.0 has got off to a very feisty start. We had a very interesting parliament session. Began with a face-off between no less than the leader of opposition and the Prime Minister himself. Now, if this is going to be the trend, then at least we can say that democracy is back, at least in parliament. We saw some important issues being raised. We also saw some personal attacks on both sides. But at the end of the day, it is democracy that wins. At least issues are being discussed. There are no walkouts. The speaker is also being called out for when he plays, if he is being partisan. So at a healthy trend, I think, is being established. Whether healthy or not, of course, I'm going to be discussing with my panel also. Joining me on the show is Javed Ansari. He's a political commentator and columnist and a senior journalist. Ashutosh, founding editor of satyahindi.com. And Dilip Cherian, political columnist, commentator and image guru. Ashutosh, we've seen a very interesting face-off and you've done a whole lot of shows also. Finally, I would say, who won, who lost, but at least we are seeing a give and take between the government and the opposition, which we haven't seen in the last decade, this kind of. Would you agree with me on that one?
No, Priya, I will not agree on that point because I was expecting that this time the opposition is slightly stronger and the government is slightly weak. There will be more give and take between them. But the fact is that today you witness the parliamentary proceeding and you realize that there is absolutely no respect for each other. Absolutely no respect for each other. A democracy cannot sustain, a democracy cannot survive if the government and the opposition have scant regard for each other. And this is, in my opinion, is going to be very, very dangerous. These are very dangerous trends because the Prime Minister wants to project that he's not weak. And the opposition wants to project that they are also not weak. Now, in this tug of war, what is happening is that all the democratic institutions in the country, within the parliament and outside the parliament, they are completely succumbing to the pressures of the government. And this is what happens, then I can understand what will happen in future. I can't imagine that the Prime Minister is speaking and the leader of opposition wants to intervene and the chairman is not willing to give him even 1 minute, 30 seconds. And then opposition was left with no other option than to walk out. See, the issue is when the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha was speaking, every minister here and there was trying to interrupt. And then they were given the space and the time. But why this attitude towards the opposition? I think this is because the government, the democracy is not defined by who is in the government. Government is not, the democracy is not defined who has got the maximum majority. The government is defined by the treatment opposition, the minority gets in the system. If there is no respect for minority, if there is no respect for the dissenting voices, if there is no respect for the disagreement, then obviously that means that the people who are occupying the chairs in the opposition or the treasury benches, they have absolutely no respect for the democracy. And I'm sorry to say this, but sometime the time has come and this has to be said in as many words. I think today the institution of speaker, today the speaker, the institution of the chairman is also under radar, and the people are watching this. That because the democracy in the parliament can function in its essence, if the speaker and the chairman, they also believe that they are not part of a particular party, are not part of a particular ideology, but they are the part of the bigger issue, that is the parliament. And come what may, despite the pressures from the government or innuendos from the opposition, they have to come stand on their feet. World is watching whether they are standing on their feet or not, and the history will judge.
Okay, Dilip, your take. But I also noticed when the Prime Minister was speaking, the opposition was also chanting slogans, which did not happen as much when Rahul Gandhi, the leader of opposition, was speaking. There was also a lot of heckling, I would say, going on, which I guess at the end of the day, the same thing happened to Rahul also, but more from the opposition side, I thought.
Dilip. I think that this is less about, more or less. I think Ashutosh's point needs to be extended, and he's made a very fundamental point that the real fault line is visible which runs between the speaker and the chairman. That is the real fault line in this session. There will be more fault lines visible as we go forward. The second thing we have to keep in mind is that if the government indeed does believe in the numbers and wants to behave like it has a majority, then its duty is to reach out and make sure that parliament functions. It is not the duty of the opposition to make sure that Parliament functions. Yes, they need to make it happen together, but the primary duty is that of the ruling party. And I think there is no getting away from that. And I think that their partners are probably watching that and recognizing that unless parliamentary democracy in its full and fair and fearless form is visible, then there will be a pushback by the people, which has already begun in the way the election results have shown us. So that's the second point. Yeah, I'll stop here. We will go around a little bit more.
Correct. Javed, your first impression on the first day, first show, or first session?
Well, I fear that things will only get worse. It's not this is not healthy at all with what is happening. You have two very strong-willed leaders on both sides who are unwilling to concede an inch. Parliament is all about compromise. It's all about debate, discussion, legislation, neither of which is happening. And like we were discussing last night on Ashutosh's show, both parties are still in election mode. There's still a lot of leftover, which, like they say in Hindi, purana hisab kitab chukana hai. So there are lots of, they're still in election mode, still trading fire. The sooner they get out of it, the better. And both sides need to respect the mandate. The government can no longer wish away the opposition. They are not 44, but they are 234. The opposition needs to recognize that this is a government with majority support. And that will continue till one of the crutches decides to move. And once you recognize that, and the other big failure is that of the presiding officers. We don't have anybody in the House. Usually when there's a logjam, this is not the first time that we've seen this kind of gridlock in Parliament, but it's usually the good offices of the presiding officers which breaks the impasse. Right now, that the presiding officers are not in a position because they are at least viewed in as far as the opposition is concerned, they are viewed with great suspicion. They are viewed as a part of the establishment. There's also an absence of any senior leader of maturity, of the kind of stature, or there's also an absence of any kind of communication, backroom communication, back channel contacts, which would try and break it. And unless somebody takes the initiative, I don't know who, because there's nobody in the House. Maybe the President of India needs to collectively and separately counsel these two gentlemen to see reason, because the institution of Parliament stands diminished. As it is, there is very little respect for politicians as far as the public is concerned. And with every time something like this happens, that goes down further. I really don't know how much lower the bar can be set. So these two sides, all sides needs to see reason. All sides need to see reason. You can't steamroll the opposition and you can't wish away the government. So the only way forward is compromise, and it will require a lot of wisdom and sagacity on the part of both leadership, the leadership of both the sides, to try.
It would also require a mediator,
That's why I said maybe President Murmu, somebody of
President Murmu, I don't know, but I was thinking, Javed, Ashutosh, more in terms of, maybe Chandrababu Naidu or someone who is not the principal player. Both of you are saying
nobody who's aligned. Nobody who's aligned.
It has to be someone who's aligned from both sides. They can set up someone, they can set up one person, but not who's the principal person. That is why we had coordinators.
See, Priya, if you have no respect for the other, the issue is there is no respect for the other. If you have respect for the other, one day or tomorrow, you will try to reach out to that person. I will try to understand him or her. What is the issue is? Today, the issue is there is no respect for each other. And I have never heard the Prime Minister on the floor of the House is talking something like this. ये जो इकोसिस्टम वाले लोग हैं, ये इस बात को समझ लें कि जो साजिश कर रहे हैं उनको उसी की भाषा में जवाब दिया जाएगा. I'm aghast. Is it a threat? But whom this threat is being given? Who are these people who belong to this ecosystem? I think this is bizarre. I have seen Prime Minister like Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I was totally against that kind of ideology. But people have huge respect for Atal Bihari Vajpayee. People have huge respect for Lalkis Advani. And there were Prime Minister like H.D. Devegowda. And he came from Karnataka. He was a regional leader. But the people who were doing national politics, they also had respect for the institution, that he is a prime minister and we have to respect him. The issue today is that you expect that the president will intervene. In which world we are living in? President will never ever intervene. The speaker will never ever intervene. The chairman will never ever intervene. The language you listen what the chairman Sahab is saying in this. I condemn it. They should apologize. They should be ashamed of. These are not the words and the language of a mediator. See, if you are out to cast a person every second minute on the opposition leaders, somebody who has spent more than 50 years in parliamentary democracy, like Khadge Sahab, he's more than 80 years of age. At least have respect for his age. You are trying to tell him that you are a first-time member of parliament and you do not know any parliament niceties. You don't belong to this house. This is not the way to conduct. This is not the way to run the democracy. That's what I'm saying. The only one man can do this, and that man is the prime minister. Nobody else. Neither the Chandrababu Naidu, nor the Nitish Kumar, nor the Rahul Gandhi, nothing. And please don't expect opposition, because opposition has suffered enough in the last 10 years. They were treated like pits. They were treated like some kind of ants. They're insulted at every second. They were threatened. Their bank accounts were frozen. They were arrested at the drop of a hat, and all kinds of things that happened to them. Now you expect that they will come back and with all kinds of niceties. Sorry, that is not going to happen. That will not happen. So issue today is much larger. The issue is democracy can run only when you have a respect for each other. If you have no respect for the leader of opposition, the leader of opposition will not have a respect for the prime minister. If the prime minister has no respect for the leader of opposition, vice versa, that will happen. So Rahul Gandhi, whether you blame Rahul Gandhi, whether you blame Narendra Modi, I don't know whom to blame. I'm only saying is, God's sake, save this democracy, have respect for each other. If the leaders of the country, they have no respect for each other, how do we expect the citizens to respect each other? If you are using foul language, violent language, how do you expect the citizens to not use those languages? Then you lose the moral right to preach your citizens that you behave.
So Dilip, any way out of the logjam at all? Ashutosh is saying that Prime Minister should take the initiative, but there's so much. He's also saying there is so much bad blood between the two that I don't know how the Prime Minister's initiative will be taken by the opposition. Do you have any takers for my theory that it should be someone who's not a principal player, but someone who is an ally? Maybe they could work it out, Dilip.
It is very comforting to think of Chandrababu Naidu. Nitish is not in a place where he can intervene honestly. And we don't need to hide that anymore. Chandrababu Naidu definitely sees himself as a statesman. But does he carry enough conviction with the India bloc? I think he does. But having said that, is he going to intervene with the Prime Minister and say, calm down and let's not get into this constant battle? I doubt it, because he is listening to a different drummer. He is not as concerned about these issues, is what I feel. That's my reading of the situation. Secondly, I think that the big point that Ashutosh is making is that what is being seen by the people of India, which unfortunately leads to what Javed Bhai is saying, that there is a diminishing of respect for politicians and parliament. And I think the more people are seeing that, responding to that, the memes that are now prevalent, meaning the funniest are the ones on the chairman of the house. Now, the fact is that you are watching the erosion of these democratic institutions. And at that point of time, someone needs to say, we can't go any lower. There is a point that you can't set the bar any lower, but the simultaneous diminishing of Parliament is something which I've been talking about for a long time, that the public does not actually either watch or care. But when there are fireworks like this, is the only time that the TRP of Parliament watching goes up. So in some senses, what the public is getting to see is actually the hostilities. And the second thing is that the opposition is, in a sense, making it clear that this is the way you're treating any minority, minorities in the country and the population, but also minority as in the government having a majority.
Okay, before we take a break, I also want to bring Javed in. But Javed, at least one point we can say is that, because of the numbers or the strident opposition, they cannot do what they were doing earlier, bringing in ordinances through the back door. Important decisions like 370 demonetization is first implemented and then discussed. At least all that will not happen now, I guess. I hope.
Well, certainly, if the opposition were 230 in the previous house, then the changeover in the IPC would never have seen light of day.
Correct. Good point.
In fact, it won't have seen light of day if 144 MPs hadn't been thrown out of Parliament. But nonetheless, if that bill was to have been brought in the 18th Lok Sabha, it would never have become a law. So that is certainly there. But these are silver linings. We are looking for what the relevance of Parliament. Parliament is supposed to meet at least for 125 days a year. Let's do a fact check. It doesn't even actually function for 25 days a year, or just about 25 days a year. They may meet for 30 days in the budget session, and 3 weeks during the monsoon session, and 3 weeks during the winter session. But how many of these days are functional? There are adjournments, there are walkouts. All this is par for the course, but ultimately business must run. There has to be room for compromise. There needs to be some back channel communication. Even that, there is no communication between the government and the opposition. There is nobody from the government side who on his or her own violation can speak and try and seek an opening with the opposition. The big two will certainly not allow it. I can tell you on good authority, in the first 3 years of Mr. Birla's first term, he had an excellent rapport with the floor leaders of the opposition parties. Every evening they used to be in his house. Then he was told that he's being too soft. He was told to tighten up his game, to rein in these people, and the rest is history. We know what happened. There's an absolute rupture. There is no Sushma Swaraj or Pramod Mahajan. There is no Pranab Mukherjee on the other side, who would, or Ahmed Patel, who would, you keep these back channel contacts happening. You meet in the gallery, you meet elsewhere, you communicate. None of this happens. The Parliamentary Affairs Minister, as a matter of principle, as a matter of ritual, every morning the first call would go to the leader of the opposition. What is on your agenda? What is it that you want to do? How do we go about it? They used to work out some kind of a modus operandi. Now nothing happens. It's just trying to push the other guy down, and it cannot happen. Given the way the numbers are matched, neither side can roll over each other. You have to work together. If not now, 6 months down the line, they will have to work together, or else this institution, you can say goodbye to it.
Which may be in the scheme of things, who knows? Taking a look at the Parliament, institution of Parliament under Modi 3.0, we've seen the first session, which is now taking a break. So what is happening? What are the signs? What to look out for? This is actually a sort of a curtain raiser. We saw the confrontationist attitudes. We also saw some debate and discussion, but my panel doesn't seem to agree that this was, that one should take too much here, because there's still too much mistrust and still too much antipathy on both sides. But the fact, Ashutosh, that a junior leader like Kiran Rijiju has been made Parliamentary Affairs Minister, does that seem like a positive sign? Because he can at least, he doesn't bring ego to the table. So he can go and, negotiate or grovel or whatever is the need of the hour. They can use him as an emissary to smoothen things over.
No, but does he have the mandate? The issue is, does he have the mandate? He doesn't have the mandate. So if he doesn't have the mandate, you can make anybody as the parliamentary affairs ministers. If your job is just to take instructions from somebody at the top and implement it. So as Javed Bhai and the Dilip ji is saying, see, the parliamentary affairs minister should be more with the opposition than with the government. Because if you are more with the opposition, only then you can understand their sensibilities, and accordingly you can advise to the government and tell them this is the road ahead. We can find a midway here. But if he's in no way to go to the opposition and is not talking to the opposition, obviously how the things will be sorted out. See, Javed Bhai has said a very important thing. He said that for 3 years there was some kind of understanding between the opposition and the speaker. But after 3 years, something got disrupted. So who was that man who was giving those instructions? So if that system continues, the problem is that when somebody becomes the emperor of the country and somebody becomes the empress of the country, this is what exactly used to happen when Mrs. Gandhi was there, because she was the cabinet, she was the minister, she was the prime minister, she was the citizen. There was nobody else. So everybody and anybody was a pawn in her hand. Now the same thing is here. Now the problem with the present dispensation is that this time this is a government which has an ideology, and within that ideological framework, they don't believe into this kind of Westminster model of the system. They have on record they have said that this constitution has no koi bharatiyata iske andar nahi hai. So if that ideology is there, then do you expect that they will respect the parliamentary system of the democracy? They don't. Tomorrow they get an opportunity, then obviously they'll go to other extent. They are saying it, that I respect the democracy, I'm a product of the democracy. Yes, that is the truth. But the fact is, whether they want to continue with the same system, they are not telling the truth. So my argument is very simple. Make anybody as the parliamentary affairs minister, things will not change unless the mindset at the top changes.
Okay. Which, in my quest for silver linings, Dilip, do you feel at least that this time around the opposition has a better set of speakers than the government? At least, the entry of Akhilesh Yadav, return of Mahua Moitra, Rahul Gandhi becoming a little more, I think, sober in his speeches. He's following a good script. He's raising good issues and not just going straight into personal attacks. So is the opposition better equipped in terms of speakers than the government side, Treasury benches side?
Besides your search for silver linings, which I endorse fully, Priya, your other eternal quest is for gossip. And the gossip in the House seems to be that there may be substantial changes in the structure and scope of the government and the ministers at the moment. So if that does happen sometime towards the close of the next session, which is what is expected, then maybe that could be one more silver lining which you can hope for. As far as speakers for the opposition are concerned, I think that this time we have also discovered hidden gems like the speaker from Manipur. So I think that you are really talking of an opposition which is empowered with a whole bunch of speakers. And I'm told that there is one more in stealth mode still who has not yet been revealed and who will come up during the session in September, when the budget session actually happens. So July. So I expect that the opposition ranks in terms of people capable of speaking will be enhanced, and you will actually see more space for debate if the government allows that, and most importantly, if the speaker does not play the partisan role which he's been instructed to play.
Interesting. I wonder who the stealth mode is who hasn't yet revealed. Apart from, Priyanka Gandhi may also be joining the Lok Sabha ranks soon. But the stealth mode, I would watch. No hints, Dilip?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Probably you said it.
We're going to call you back for that one. But Javed, your take on this list of speakers, do you see anybody from the Treasury benches side, any of the new faces that one could, raise and talk about? Who has potential?
Look, there are a lot of, there are some people there, Bhupender Yadav for once. If it was left to me, he would have been a very good parliamentary affairs minister. I know in his innings in the Rajya Sabha, during the last session when there was a stalemate, although Mr. Piyush Goyal was the leader of the House, it was Mr. Bhupender Yadav who was doing all the back channel contacts with the opposition. He was the one who was trying to work out a solution, work out some kind of compromise. He has cross-party linkages. He's able to safeguard the government's interests, but also ensure that there is some space for the opposition. So there are people there.
But he is like the makings of Arun Jaitley.
More important from the Treasury bench's side is that they should have some of the disruptors zip it up. Like the MP from Jharkhand,
Yes.
Anurag Thakur, all these people need to be told, you are now in a government. The problem is that although they've been in government for 10 years, this is the 11th year, a lot of the BJP MPs and ministers are still in opposition mode. Constant interruption, constantly heckling. It's
called the Arvind Kejriwal syndrome. He's always in opposition and protest mode.
Yeah, so if you're always in protest mode, then it's now the game has changed. The numbers have changed. There are close to 240 opposition MPs. And they're not willing to back down an inch.
Correct.
So there are a lot of people, and now once Priyanka comes in, there'll be
some more excitement, yeah.
Yeah, some more excitement. But for all these speakers to show what they are worth, there has to be a conducive environment for a healthy debate. Right now, nobody is allowed to complete his or her speech. There is some interruption, there is some disruption, something or the other happens. Earlier, it used to be such an education. I began my career covering politics. A lot of people start from the crime beat I didn't. I was straight away catapulted into Parliament, and I've had the very, great fortune, privilege of listening to some stalwarts. There was so much I learned.
Which are not there, yeah.
Yes,
but
now, most of these people, they don't do their homework, they don't know the rules. There needs to be an orientation course during this break. There are so many new MPs, there needs to be a 2-week.
I think they're told that it's your lung power rather than content that matters, which is what we see in our TV debates also. It's just the hecklers rather than debaters.
The more you abuse, the more chances of going up in the ladder.
Yeah, exactly. They're all auditioning for a Rajya Sabha and
this is what the other thing that speakers have not understood is that we are now nationally in a meme culture. You've got to say what you want to say in one line, get your punch in before you are scrutinized, shouted down, or the speaker impales you. So the fact is that a lot of the speakers, many of them, unfortunately, the good ones, have watched speeches of the past to try and use their technique, but the technique also needs to change.
That's true. You have to get with the times. But on that note, thank you so much for this discussion. And indeed, there is a note of warning. I hope our parliamentarians are hearing this, because as Javed said, we've all, Parliament is one of the strongest pillars. We've, grown up on these feisty speeches, strong speeches, debate. We need to bring that back. Our country needs that. But on that note, thank you so much for this conversation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.